They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of reviewer I am. I'm not going to give it lows. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, he wouldn't even hate a Hitchcock movie.
Happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today, our Halloween movie in the middle is Psycho. Psycho is Hitchcock's psychological thriller following a woman on the run with stolen money who ends up staying at the vacant and creepy Bates Motel. It stars Janet Leigh, Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, John Gavin, and Martin Balsam. So I have not yet talked about Hitchcock on this channel, and I promise I will do that a little bit more because I am catching up on all of his movies, but this is my absolute, hands down, all-time favorite of Hitchcock and an absolute must-see every Halloween. And the trailer for this movie has to be one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting, I've ever seen. Not only does Hitchcock kind of ruin part of the movie by giving away what the actual plot is because it's supposed to subvert your expectations, but he legitimately goes for like 6 minutes through every location and kill of the movie. He talks about the entire movie. And you think this would ruin it, right? No. Because it's now you gotta say, it's like, honestly, it's like an early version of just listening to true crime podcasts. It's like, now you gotta know, now you gotta see what actually happened. It's like he's going through just this empty location of what happened here. And you're like, I gotta see it in real time. All right, let's just get right into the highs. First off, I love this movie because it is an old movie that does feel old, also kind of timeless because it's such a simple story that's just very slowly, gradually built up. There's not much in it that would really date it, except for maybe some of the costumes and how people act. But even then, it's a little bit more neutral than a lot of other old movies. So really, those two things together make this so good because it has that old, sort of creepy feeling. And it doesn't really have a lot of, modern pop culture references and things like that. But it's also not so dated that you're like, oh God, okay, I have to qualify this as it's good for an old movie. It feels like this could take place almost any time. And the story holds up and helps in so many ways. Two specifically, the first being that it is very simplistic. It's just a very straightforward, simple story of events happening. And it doesn't really get complex necessarily until the end when there's explanations going on. Up until that point, you're just kind of sitting in this movie and watching events unfold and just sitting in this atmosphere and this creepy feeling. The second reason, and probably even more important, is because it's so surprising. It subverts your expectations. I really wish that I could go back and watch this movie for the first time and not know, because when I first saw the movie, obviously I knew the whole shower scene. I wish I just never knew that the main character of this movie gets Ned Stark halfway through the movie. That would have been mind-boggling. I can't even imagine what it was like for audiences when they first saw it to be so who do we follow now? Do we follow Norman? Is he the main character now? Is it the other people, the family? And it kind of is all of them. And I think that's just so interesting. He basically did what Game of Thrones did. He takes out the main character, but because you have all these other great characters to build it up, it doesn't falter. It doesn't fall in any one place because now you have to build the story around all these other people. And actually now it's even more suspenseful because anybody else who goes into that motel, it's just going to get worse and worse for them. And I've already mentioned this briefly, but like I talked about with Young Frankenstein, I also just love the atmosphere of this movie. It's creepy, it's eerie. Something's going on, but you're not quite sure what. And what I like the most is that, except for maybe a few parts, it doesn't even try to scare you. It's not actively trying, it's just creepy and a little bit unsettling, and it just lets you sit in it. And everything just feels like it has a presence, specifically the motel, but even more specifically, the house. It's just interesting because it's not even presented as a scary house. It's just a normal, regular house. But going to a stranger's house in the middle of nowhere when you know something weird is happening, that in and of itself is scary enough, and probably even scarier than if they tried to make it weird or spooky. It's just this house. It's just large, but it just has this presence on top of the hill. It's just so good. And of course, like 90% of this comes from the masterful directing by Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, he has the title of Master of Suspense, and it's true. He earns it. Because this man has me intently watching mundane activities like trying to hide money, cleaning up a bathroom, looking through a motel for clues. I don't know how he does it, but he could have me watching grass grow, and it would probably have me on the edge of my seat. Because, like, if you really think about it, the first at least third of this movie is not really much of general interest happening. It's just kind of regular things. Like there's a whole scene where she's just buying a car. But it's because he presents all of these questions that you need to know answers to. And obviously, even though these things are mundane activities, it's because she feels like she's being watched. And he presents all of these scenes with just, like, this foreboding, this kind of, like, creepiness over top of it, even though it's just all these kind of regular things. And what I like about that too is that it makes the subversion of the plot even better, because now you're already invested in something that isn't even the main plot. You think that this is supposed to be it. And it's great when it, like, just completely does a 180, and now everything before that is useless, but in a good way. I don't know how many movies you can say abandons a plot and it's good, but in this one it is, because who would expect to be in a murder scenario? Who would expect that to happen to them, right? You're already focused on your own conflicts, your own problems, everything in your world, and that is what we're supposed to be scared of. But no, it's actually this thing. You just didn't even know it was coming, and it's just so good. And it's funny because the last shot is the money drowning in the river in the car, and it's useless. It was just a MacGuffin. It has nothing to do with anything. But of course, not everything in the movie is a slow burn build up. Like, you have to build up to something, namely the 3 kills or attempted kills. And honestly, I can't tell you which of them I think is the creepiest. Because obviously you have the first one, one of the most famous horror scenes of all time, the shower scene, which has Bernard Herrmann's incredible score of just these piercing violins. It's so simple, but so effective. And also just the clever editing, which I still think holds up to this day. Although for me, the creepier image of that scene is just the silhouette of this person coming into the bathroom, and it's just quiet. Like, lack of music can be just as effective, if not more, than music. Then obviously you have the second kill, which I think is honestly the most underrated one, because I mean it's so creepy. It's just like you're looking from over top. It's incredibly framed, and then it's just like, whoop, there he is, and you're dead. There's no time. You as the audience know it's coming. Our big ass does not know it's coming. So you can see it before he would see it, and it's, dramatic irony is so freaking good. The falling down the stairs thing was a little bit weird, I grant you. I don't know what that was, whatever. And then, of course, you have the final one, the reveal, which you see the mother's been dead the whole time in this really great, harsh lighting of just like an exposed light bulb. Also, then, obviously, you see Norman come in, who up to this point has been a little odd, a little shifty, a little shady. You're not really sure what's going on with him. Something's up. But now he just looks outright psychotic, in his mother's clothing and a wig, and you're like, this is the guy we've been following the whole time and maybe feeling bad for? And now suddenly you're feeling some type of way about that. And, I already mentioned it, but I just think Bernard Herrmann's score is just amazing. I can't get out of this video without mentioning it, because obviously there's the shower scene. I already talked about that one, but I think the main theme is just so underrated compared to that one. It always gets overshadowed by the violence, but it's so good. It's just like this creepy, foreboding theme that makes you feel like you're being watched. It just gets this sense of anxiety from everywhere. Like you can't go anywhere without being watched or caught. And I can't say for sure, but I feel like, maybe it's a coincidence, but I feel like John Williams actually took a little inspiration from that score into the E.T. score. Okay, so like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I don't have any lows for this movie, but I want to mention that if there was a low, a lot of people say it is the ending, the last, almost last scene, because that's kind of where all the explanation is. So to people, it feels like an info dump. But honestly, to me, I'm like, I don't know how you could have this movie and have that twist, and not, like, I don't know how you can do it without this scene. You don't want to explain stuff too much ahead of time, and honestly, you probably couldn't. but then you don't want to leave it open-ended and be like, what the hell? Why was that? And I think it's just kind of like a relief. It's a little bit of a moment to take a breather, because you have this person who is a professional giving you concrete explanations as to what's happened. And honestly, Simon Oakland, who plays, I think he's a psychiatrist, some sort of doctor with that, I think the way that he gives this monologue is just riveting. Like, I don't know, it's like you want to gather around and hear what happened. So overall, this is a masterpiece of a movie, and I could talk about it forever. It's just so simple, but there's so much depth to it. There's so many little things to look at, and just the overall feel. It's a movie that, honestly, it blows my mind that more people who watch it for the first time nowadays don't immediately figure it out, because we're so used to twists. We're so used to insane things happening in movies. Like, this feels like such a simple premise now, but then it was still pretty new. It was, we didn't have all of these insane, you know, M. Night Shyamalan, James Wan sort of twists going on. So I'm really surprised that every time I show it to somebody, and including myself, you had some maybe inclination of what it might be, but you weren't sure. And I think with just such a simple premise, with so little characters, it's masterful how Hitchcock's able to make this whole thing, and you don't know for sure, even though it should seem pretty obvious. It's just done in a way that I wonder, if it was made today, would it be kind of just a throwaway horror movie that was put out in January and everyone forgot about it? But it's absolutely not. It shocks me that this is, such an old movie, and I've seen it multiple times, and yet I am actually genuinely creeped out and terrified every time I watch this movie. And it's because it's just that good. I'm going to give Psycho a 4 out of 4, making it my next top shelf movie. I just realized that I think every Halloween I do a review of a movie that I give a 4 out of 4 to. Like, I just like all of these movies so much. I think they're so good. Which makes me think, what do I do next year? Well, guys, those are pretty much all of my thoughts on Psycho. Like I said, I could talk about it forever. But let me know what you think of Psycho. Let me know where it ranks among all the other Hitchcock films for you. I still have like a handful I still want to see. But I hope you guys have a great Halloween. I hope you have a nice, safe one. Get a lot of candy. Get a lot of scares, whatever you want. Just don't go up into some random stranger's house. Don't go into a motel. Don't steal money. Maybe don't take a shower. I don't know. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.